Hey, good morning, everybody. I am Jackie,
And I'm Ethan.
and welcome to our show, Plan Well to Live Well. And on today's show, on the health, wellness, and nutrition segment, we have our special guest, Mark from GFit Nutrition.
Yes, and we're going to be welcoming Mark to our show. We're going to ask him a lot of questions. Mark, he is a specialist in nutrition. He has a lot of different businesses surrounding his health and wellness ventures, which will be interesting to hear his take on all that aspect. So I personally know Mark, and I asked him to be on the show. I've known Mark for oh my God, about 7-8 years, and every once in a while, at the gym, we will talk about different things and participate in different nutritional events, and he's helped me a lot to understand really about the basics of health and wellness, and it's going to be interesting how it ties in to our show, our Plan Well show, how health and wellness ties into health, life, and insurance and retirement. So we're going to try to connect those dots for our guests. Here we go. Thank you very much. Tune in, everybody. All right, Mark, how you doing? Thank you for being patient.
Morning, Mark.
Good morning. What's going on, guys?
Very good, very good. Thank you for joining our show. We're going to have a discussion today really about you and how you got involved with all the different things. I was telling our viewers earlier that we know each other personally from the show, and but really I don't know too much about how and why you started your whole adventure of health and wellness, nutrition and exercise. So we're going to kind of tap into your brain a little bit today and see what's going on. So let's first say, well, Mark, why don't you, kind of tell us a little about yourself and basically how you got into this interesting space.
Yeah, my passion kind of always in life, pretty much since I've been 18, is working out and fitness and nutrition. Nutrition kind of took front stage in all of that as a lot of things evolved in my life, whether it was health issues with my son, health issues with my dad, opening a gym and needing to get members' results. And it kind of just slowly evolved from there to a passion of mine, realizing that nutrition and our diet and our dietary approach kind of has the biggest impact in our life. I would have a lot of people in our gym coming all the time. They're not getting healthier. So obviously fitness and exercise is a huge part of that. But I would see a lot of people where they're kind of spinning their wheels and even still having detrimental health effects. So, and that's where the nutrition kind of comes in hand. And that's kind of the thing that became my passion.
Wow.
Mark, that's interesting that you say that, because as Ethan and I, we're advisors. So oftentimes when we're working with clients and we're trying to, they come to us with specific needs in terms of health insurance, life insurance, and your overall wellness plays an important part, and we can't get them the services and products that they need because of those very things that yo-yoing up and down with their weight, or they have high blood pressure, and all of those things have a huge effect on getting them the services that they need, or we want to introduce to them, but we can't for those very reasons. So we're going to dive deep and talk a little bit about the, especially your clients getting the results that they need, even personally. Oh my gosh, being a person over 50, a woman, and menopause has played a dramatic role in my weight retention. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about some of the meal plans and courses and things that you offer at GFit.
Yeah. What I think our whole program and our mission, and I think a lot of what we'll get into here, is we tried to create a product, and I don't even really necessarily want to speak too much about the product itself, but what we really tried to do was create a product that was simple, practical, down to earth, and doable. Because one of the big things that we're kind of like have a little bit of mission about is showing people that this doesn't have to be nerd stuff. You don't have to get some foreign special supplement. You don't have to necessarily always go on medications. We've managed this with food and diet for our entire history of humanity. And just in the last 100 years, it's really gotten a lot worse. And we're just trying to introduce how normal meals normal behaviors can solve most of the problems that people have. It's just a matter of kind of getting to know it. And also having that wow light bulb moment where you realize, like, this is something I can do. This isn't beyond my scope. There's some habits and some things we need to introduce to people for sure, but it's regular meals. It's regular stuff. It's just knowing what to do and what not to do. One of the things I really think is the modern day hunter gatherer doesn't have to go kill something or hunt or gather something. It's knowing to be able to distinguish between what's healthy and what's not healthy. That's kind of the skill set we really need to survive now.
I know personally, I have a hard time, trying to figure out what to eat. I'm a simple eater. My wife as well. Before we met, I was basically just eating. Everything was bland. I could eat, a piece of chicken on a piece of bread, and I would be totally happy with it. But, over the years of us being together, she had introduced me. She's a foodie, and I became kind of a foodie. And it's enjoyable. It's great food. We don't necessarily eat Big Macs and stuff like that all day long. But just because you go to, say, a nice restaurant, it doesn't necessarily mean that the food that you're eating is healthy. I mean, it looks great, it tastes great.
It's not.
And so it's a challenge, and then that's just going out, and that's not a big part of our life. But the biggest problem that I have is coming home, opening up my fridge, and I'm like, am I going to eat my kids' pizza? Am I going to eat my kids' pasta? What am I going to eat? Am I going to eat the chicken that is my struggle. And I think I shared with you a couple of times that, you thought that was crazy, that, I can have some chocolate at night and it will knock me out. And you said, I'm having an insulin, something to do with insulin, because I said I can have some chocolate and then 5 minutes later I can be asleep. And, can you explain to me how that affects the insulin? Because it seems like that's kind of what your body is always doing.
Yeah, well, and part of that mission of getting people to realize that it's so close to them is to understand, I'm going to say something not like that profound right now. It really comes down to sugar. And by sugar, I mean all carbohydrates become sugar within the body. And people don't realize that. So there's a lot of marketing and a lot of things that really confuse people. There's a lot of different fad diets. This diet works, that diet works. How do they all work? They're all conflicting. But if you really analyze any diet, if you analyze any approach, really there's a few things that are coming into play. Either people truly are just eating too much because they have no awareness. But a lot of times that's not the case. There's a lot of people that are not overeating and they're struggling with their weight. And that's normally because you've gotten yourself into a situation metabolically where your body, your metabolism is not efficient. Maybe you've been starving yourself for too long, or as you store more fat on your body, fat begets fat. You increase estrogen, which increases fat storage, which increases estrogen. So it starts to feed on itself. And then there's also just what you're bringing up, which is snacking at night. And if you're grabbing those cheap carbs, and if you're on those cheap carbs, even if they appear to be healthy, when it puts you up and down on that roller coaster, insulin's going up and down. And then it's you're at the mercy of blood sugar. And it really comes down that simple. If you could just remove some of those basic things in your life, you'll be a lot more streamlined. But when you're up and down like that, you kind of go into an energy crisis and you start to feel a lot of the things that you're feeling in the form of cravings, energy, being tired. It's literally as simple as just blood sugar going up and down. That's the effect that you have. It's what after a Thanksgiving meal, it's a big part of why you feel that way.
You described me all too well, because for the last 3 years, I've adopted this vegetarian lifestyle, and I get teased sometimes because I'm a plump vegetarian, and it's because of when I introduce carbs into my diet. So I'm trying to get much better at that. So
if I could speak to that, because this is an important point. There's a lot of people that are vegetarian or try vegetarian. I do not try to get caught up in the approach that people take. I do not want to get into that almost religious-like argument with people or political argument. And then I'm concerned about health. Okay. So my concern is whatever dietary approach you're going to adopt, you honor these principles that are a truth for anything. There is overeating and undereating. There is insulin and blood sugar. There is digestive problems. So a lot of times, if I could speak specifically maybe to some of the things that maybe you experience or a lot of people I coach, they'll go vegetarian because they think it's healthier. And I don't have a problem with that if that's what they want to do. My main concern is then you have to really craft a perfect diet if you're going to go vegetarian, because you are removing certain food groups. So you have to be careful to get enough amino acids or proteins. But then you also have to balance that with digestion, because plants are great. I probably eat more plants than anyone. But if you go too extreme to the other end and you don't balance them out with the right type of plants, or if you're not eating meat, one of the things that you'll find a struggle is that a lot of the plant proteins and plant fibers are tough to digest. So people can get a lot of digestional distress if they go vegetarian. And it doesn't mean that you can't do that. You just need to calculate everything very so people feel better because they're getting off the standard American diet, which is a
science project. It's a science project, right?
It is, and that goes back to what I was saying. Being the new modern hunter-gatherer almost is figuring out how to craft that, and that's hard for the common person to go figure out because you can be doing something that you think is healthier that's actually causing you more digestional stress, maybe more leaky gut, maybe more metabolic mimicry or molecular mimicry. There's all these things that I'm just throwing out there, just to be honest, because there's a lot of topics that food is powerful. Food's very powerful. So it has to be calculated and crafted, especially if you're going to do something specific.
And you know something, the one thing that came to mind is when I first went vegetarian, I was bloated in the very beginning. And that was because of this balance that you're speaking to. And I had to figure out, the digestive of figuring out what works best for me. So that way I wasn't bloated any longer. So I understand exactly what you're speaking to. And hopefully our viewers will understand too, if they've adopted the vegetarian lifestyle. If they're feeling bloated, that's the reason why. It's the
those plant fibers, and they have a natural defense mechanism as well. And when you overconsume them, so to speak, they can cause a lot of those problems. So a lot of times with vegetarians that I will work with, I will notice, and this is, once again, this is not a critique on anyone. This is awareness. One of the guys that I know that is practically vegetarian promoter has a book on all the dangers of plants. And it's more because he's trying to educate people. Now, I am not a vegetarian. Our plan is not a vegetarian. But with that said, my main thing is whatever you're adopting, make sure you're accounting for these things, because people always just assume, like, if you go into Whole Foods and it says organic, people assume it's healthy, and it's not. Like, it's just a marketing thing on a label. So sometimes people make these associations or assumptions, but you still have to be able to figure it out and calculate it so it's actually beneficial to your body.
Mark, my brother is vegetarian, and my niece, his daughter, she's vegan. I am trying to wrap my head around what that means, because my brother lives in California, and we probably see each other maybe 2-3 times a year. We'll meet at a destination, like New Orleans, and we'll meet in, I'll come out to California, or he comes out here back home to the Philadelphia area. We can be out eating, and he's just like, he doesn't bend, for the most part, social eating, he doesn't bend from that. But my question for you is, can you explain the scientific or the personal differences between a vegan and a vegetarian? Not why they choose to be vegetarian or vegan, but what is the difference between a vegan and a vegetarian?
Well, normally a vegan will remove all animal-based products, whereas a vegetarian may include, there's definitely scales of this, where certain types of vegetarians will include some eggs or maybe like some cheese. They just won't eat animal meat. They won't eat meat from or flesh. So that's
a medical reason why they do it. Maybe you don't.
So I think there's a lot of spiritual reasons, religious background reasons why people, do not eat meat. There's obviously whether someone considers it political or their beliefs on environmental things or ethical reasons. People make those decisions for different reasons. One of the things I do try to teach without offending anyone is that you do not have to be vegetarian to be your healthiest self. There's lots of healthy things in meats. And once again, I do not say that to get into the debate of whether someone should or should not do that. That is a personal choice. The thing that I very get strongly about when it comes to plants is more of the plant-based agenda versus plants and the health of plants. So if you see me, I eat a bowl of salad that's like this. I probably eat more greens than most vegetarians. But one of the things I don't like about it isn't the people that may be following it or the approach itself for people if they choose to do that. It's a lot of marketing uses words like plants and vegetables to sell people the worst ingredients in the world. Some of those are seed oils. Some of those are maltodextrin, corn-based products. Not that corn can be terrible, but they've turned a few things into everything. And when I walk down the aisles of stores and look at the shelves, they're all the same 2-3 ingredients, and they're all plants. We use these things to manipulate people, and that's a part that I find myself fighting sometimes in educating people. It's not that I even want to get into that debate. It's that I don't want to see people say not pick meat because they think it's not healthy when it could be very healthy for individuals, but then go replace it with fake processed products, fake seed oils, like, things like that. That's what I don't want to see them doing. So no matter which diet you choose, if you go keto, that's where you're like eating no carbs.
Yeah, what is that keto? I hear it seems like is this like a fad right now, or is that an actual truly sustainable?
Sustainability is always up to the person. Like, to me, being vegetarian would not be sustainable, but to another person, it's really easy. They love it. They feel better. To some, being keto is very sustainable. I lived keto for 1.5 years, and I did it for research reasons, for most of all. But keto is really a diet that's meant to address insulin resistance. When you drop all of your carbohydrates, and if in theory you're controlling the amount that you're eating, you are lessening your dependency on insulin. So you're not abusing insulin. So you're giving your body a chance to heal. Now, if you overeat and you're eating a lot of processed foods in the process of doing keto, then that's no better either. So that's a big part in that. Keto is a really good diet to heal certain things, certain conditions. One of the things I try to teach people with diets is you can use specific, more extreme diets to heal a condition. We just worked with someone where we used carnivore, which I know is the opposite of vegetarian, but because it totally removes the sugars and totally removes those things, sometimes the gut can heal if there's a bacterial overgrowth within the gut, within the digestive system. And my goal wouldn't be to leave somebody in a carnivore diet forever. It would be to heal and then slowly reintroduce foods that their body can tolerate. And the same can go for if someone went the other way. If they were vegetarian, a lot of times it can be to heal something or to remove a lot of these processed foods. And that's, if someone was going to go vegetarian, it should be to remove these heavily processed foods, not to drift into them more. But specific approaches can help you heal specific conditions. But ideally, I try to get people into a lifestyle that is sustainable and is doable and doesn't feel like a sacrifice.
It's funny you should say that, Mark, because right, the sacrifice on my journey, it's spiritual, and
Awesome.
it was a personal choice. So I now find myself reading labels more, so that way I'm not consuming things that have a lot of additives, a lot of sodium, because I notice certain products for me, if it's too much sodium that's added, or if there's too many other additives. So, and I'm watching my calorie intake too, because sometimes things are over added. So to your point earlier about walking down the aisle and your eye is directed towards if it says organic and all of these other things from a marketing standpoint, as a former marketer myself, I know now to read the label, figure out what it is I'm putting into my body, the number of calories. That sodium is so important. So that way, the simpler or the less ingredients, the better.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're buying a piece of lettuce, it doesn't have a nutrition label on it because it is what it is. If you're buying, I know they can do it now and they do, but for the most part, if someone was eating meat, if that was a real food, then that is not, it doesn't need a nutrition label. So the closer they are to nature, obviously the better, the less ingredients. And someone doesn't have to go fully neurotic. Like if there's like a little thing in it, it's hard to find things. If you're eating something that's like you're on the go or something like that, you're trying to buy stuff that's the minimal ingredients.
That's right.
So it is closer to nature. And to your point, you mentioned blood pressure and health with aging and stuff like that. And one of the things that is an eye-opening thing for people is there are very salt-sensitive people, and then there's also carbohydrates attract water. Now, I'm not an anti-carb person. My son eats a lot of carbs because he is an athlete. So I always believe you should earn your carbs. That's kind of a thing we say. Carbs are short, quick energy. You should have a baseline just to make life easier. And, if you want to go to keto, you can, or if you want to go, you can. But for a balanced diet, it's easier to live a lifestyle where you have carbohydrates in it. And there's lots of healthy foods that have carbohydrates. We eat plenty of fruit. We eat things like that, but within the mindset of controlling our calories. But one of the things is if people are elevating their carbs to, like, say, the standard American diet, and they're all processed, that attracts a lot of water. And when you attract a lot of water, you're attracting a lot of pressure and swelling. So a lot of the bloating and a lot of the blood pressure issues people have is because they are reliant on heavily processed carbohydrate foods. And I say processed not because the process is bad, but also because when they're processed, they're addictive, and you can just consume way more than you could. And like if you eat a banana, there's 25 carbs in it, but like it's packed. If you eat a serving of fruit, there's only so much fruit you can eat. If you're eating, even if you're eating any natural high carbohydrate type foods, there's only so many carbs you can get from that food. But when you go to get a latte at Starbucks, like a couple squirts and you're at 100 carbs, and it's all processed and it's putting you on that blood sugar. And that's all attracting water and swelling and blood pressure. So one of the quickest things people can do for their numbers to bring down their, when people say go on our challenge, our diet, their blood pressure will drop dramatically because they're just getting rid of all that excess processed carbohydrate, which is attracting all the water and the blood pressure.
Yeah, that's kind of, maybe you talk about, I did your challenge, not this year, but I believe I did your challenge. I'm not sure maybe if it was
2 years ago, I think we did.
We wanted 3 years ago, right? And I do remember doing the challenge, and I do remember that right from the get-go, within like the first 3, 4, 5 days, I lost a lot of weight, but it was basically like water retention. Can you talk a little bit? Well, why is my body retaining water, and I don't actually know what I did. I don't remember what I did to get rid of all this water retention. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So high carbs will attract, and I really want it to be clear, I'm not against carbohydrates. Our carbs are unnaturally high in our American diet because we eat a lot of processed food. So that's the main thing I want to link. So with that assumption, when your carbs are high, like when you eat the pasta, or you grab a soft pretzel, or you drink something that has a lot of sugar in it, these are things we never would have had in the history of humanity. Do you know what I mean? Until all modern food processing over the last 100 years. We just would not have been able to eat that.
They're killing us, Mark, right? They're killing us. Unknowingly.
Simply removing those things will drop blood pressure, will reduce insulin. So to your question, the water weight is, sometimes people think it's a trick, and to some degree it is, but that's not. It's actually healthy to get rid of some of that excess bloating and water weight, because like I said, it's putting a lot of pressure. You're trying to get the same amount through a same size hose, or more through the same size hose. So you're putting a lot of pressure on the body, and high blood pressure is a high risk for metabolic and cardiovascular, disease. So it's putting so much pressure on the body. The reason you're losing all that water weight is because when you drop the carbs, you're dropping the insulin, and when the insulin gets lower, you're holding on to less water. So there's this whole connection between what's being attracted, what's being held onto within the body. Certain hormones, certain things will attract things. And one of those, this is why I say, like I said, it's so close to you. Just get rid of those processed carbohydrates, and you're naturally going to reduce blood sugar. You're going to control everything that's kind of wrecking everyone within the country. So you just got to bring that down to a reasonable level, and most people will be fine. But it's so common around us, and everyone's doing it, that no one sees it.
Yeah, it seems like it's normal daily life to. I guess I don't know if we're not talking about some people that are. I think you said like it's always around us. There are people that are overindulging, right? But kind of what I started with you is that I'm having a hard time because I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong sometimes, because I don't feel like I'm overindulging, but I do feel like, hey, if I had that candy bar, I saw something on, I don't have TikTok, but I guess when I have Instagram and something flows onto my Instagram, my kids are telling me it's TikTok. I'm like, I don't have TikTok, but I guess so. So there was I'm dating myself, but I don't know. But I would say that, I saw a TikTok thing, and the guy or the girl was like, you talked about Starbucks, right? And he goes, well, this Starbucks has 49 grams of sugar. And then he showed what 49 grams of sugar is. And that's my entire sugar. We have a little sugar thing when we have family over. That's my entire thing of sugar that we can maybe go to like 100 rounds when we have family over for teas and coffee. I'm like, I'm just putting that into my body in just one drink. And when my kids were a little younger, they were doing like 3 of these drinks a week. Yeah. I was like, oh my God. And, and I guess you're not realizing that you're overindulging because you're doing one drink on a Wednesday, then you're doing one drink on a Friday, and then maybe one drink. Like, hey, I'm not doing this all day long.
No, but when you combine
one drink a week, 2 drinks a week, but it's like, 300 grams of sugar a week. I mean, That's not normal for us to do. Is that right, Mark?
Right. And then you combine that with all the other heavily processed foods that you just don't realize that you're kind of picking at throughout the week. When I walk around, I'm studying, I'm analyzing it and looking at people. So it seems very normal when you're in Starbucks next to people that are all doing the same thing, or when you're in a restaurant, but they add sugar. They want it to taste good. And they're not here for your health. They want it to be this thing. And sugar is extremely addicting. The dopamine release you get off of it, the blood sugar high you get off of it, how you feel. These things become traditions for us because of how they make us feel. And it's literally like Pavlov's dog, where it's just like there's a trigger, whether it's an emotion, whether it's a time of day, whether it's the environment we're in. You know, I even feel those triggers when I'm with friends. You know, I want a beer more, or I want the sun's out and I want to sit on my patio. And like there's triggers for us. And if we're not aware of those triggers, then we kind of have those things and they make us feel good. And that's where eating and sugar becomes emotional. But people are doing it way more than they realize. I think, I forget the exact stat, but it's something along the lines of like in 1900 or 1800, we consumed like 4 pounds of sugar a year. And now we're all up to 150 pounds of sugar a year or something like that. It's like ridiculous.
Can you say that again, Mark? Can you say that again?
Don't quote me exactly, but it's roughly like in 1800, we were consuming like 4 pounds of sugar a year per individual. And now we're at like 150 pounds.
Wow.
So the demand that is placing on our hormonal system and what it's causing, which is insulin resistance. So there's a quote that I forget who the doctor is or who the researcher, but he generally says anybody with cardiovascular disease that has not been diagnosed with insulin resistance or being pre-diabetic has just not been diagnosed, because all cardiovascular disease will stem from insulin resistance, and you know how all that starts to fail. And insulin resistance, I mean, I don't know how nerdy you want me to get. It's a simple mechanism. So when you eat a lot of sugar, you release a lot of insulin, because insulin's job is to open up a doorway to get that sugar into your cell. So you have energy. So all of our cells need energy. That's how we're doing what we're doing right now. So it's in our blood, which is delivering it throughout the body. Insulin takes that sugar, puts it in the cell so we can function. If we have too much, it'll go to the liver. It could be stored as fat because we are survival machines. So we'll store that fat. We're not going to waste it because fat is stored energy, because we don't know when we may get food again. Now, unfortunately, actually beneficially, we have abundance of calories around us. The problem is they're all processed and cheap. So we're not eating the amounts we normally would. We're not eating the whole foods we normally would. And then when we do that, sugar goes up, insulin goes up. Insulin brings sugar back down because sugar is toxic in the blood. It's literally toxic. It causes a process called glycation. It binds to proteins. It disrupts your arterial bed will get disrupted. So now cholesterol can get through. It's literally causing all of the problems that we have in regards to metabolic syndrome and insulin resistance and heart disease.
Sugar is the problem.
Yes. And the thing that people don't realize is I will have lots of conversations where people say, I don't eat a lot of sugar. And you do. If you eat a lot of carbohydrates, you do. Like they can, like, I think maltodextrin.
There's sugar in bread, right, Mark? There's sugar in bread.
It's sugar.
There's sugar in pasta. There's sugar in rice. There's sugar in
the
our
most
pizza,
part,
right? There's sugar in our pizza, right? I mean, pizza is an American staple, right? There's hot dogs. There's sugar in our hot dogs.
Every carbohydrate will be broken down, for the most part, I'm simplifying here, but will be broken down to glucose, and then glucose is in the blood, and glucose is sugar. And then your body has to partition that and deal with it. And the problem with the amount, when you go from 4 pounds to 150 pounds, when you're having, you know, like a person who's doing a keto diet will have less carbohydrates in a day than that one latte.
Wow.
And they'll probably get it from raspberries and, you know, from maybe like something dense, healthy carbohydrate, or from their nuts, like they're eating like from real food. So not that I'm not saying people to go keto, but just to give a context of how much carbohydrates and processed carbohydrates we are eating. And then, yes, you combine that with the types of fats we eat, and it becomes a health disaster, because we're not eating. A lot of times people are fearful of saturated fats, but if it's a saturated fat that's from a natural source, there's no problem with that. And if you're eating it in natural amounts, most of our fat problems come from being fried, being trans fats, and being cooked in fats like seed oils, vegetable oils that cannot tolerate high heats. So they kind of become this Frankenstein food that then you're consuming that is disrupting a whole course of other things and causing all sorts of inflammation within our body. So that combination of sugar and processed fats, and they both come from soybean oil, canola oil, and then you combine that with maltodextrin, corn, sugar, all that high fructose corn syrup. Those two ingredients, or that combination, is really what's so detrimental to our health right now. And it's in everything. It's literally in everything. Go look at the snack that you eat. It'll be made of high fructose corn syrup and maltodextrin and soybean oil. Just go look at it. And it's all rancid, and it's not giving us anything. And it's causing a lot of inflammation and swelling within the body.
So, Mark, great information. One of the things that I'm reading your bio and what we do in terms of my personal accountability, and I do a little bit of journaling. So try and help myself stay on track a little bit. I'm not consistent with it, but can you speak to this meal plan and accountability experience and how you help your clients become a better version of themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So the challenge that we have, I almost feel like the challenge sounds gimmicky, but really what we're trying to do is most people buy products like ours to lose weight. And people buy crazy things to lose weight. Whereas what we're trying to do is get somebody in, because we know someone wants to lose some weight. But once they get in there, we actually are trying to truly take care of them so that when they get done the 28 days, they are in a better position than they were when they started. They come away with more empowerment, more know-how, more understanding. And most importantly, we see our challenge as a behavioral tool. So in working with people, for 15 years now, the food was what I was focused on in the beginning. What's the right food and dietary approach? And you find that most of the problems can be solved with this 80-20 principle, right? There are some people that need specific things to target, specific conditions. But most people can solve most of the problems with this 80-20 principle. And that's what we try to do with our dietary approach. So we're reducing the carbohydrates. We are removing any seed or, trans fats or vegetable oils that are unhealthy. We're only using natural foods, and we are controlling the amount. So people get introduced to portion sizes. But most importantly, I see it as a belief tool and a behavioral tool. So belief in that you're going to go make a thing that we call GFit lasagna, and you're going to go make chili, and you're going to go make all these different recipes that are super tasty, super doable, super practical, stuff you buy in stores. So you walk away with seeing okay, I can live this life and be healthy and not develop all this disease. Now, I can't make those claims about our diet. We're not there yet, even though we are doing a study in the spring. But those things, I want those tools to change people's beliefs about what they can do themselves and what food, how powerful food is. And then more importantly, the habits. So we hold you accountable by checking off the meals that you eat, by just putting one foot in front of the other, getting small victories, so that you kind of trick yourself into 28 days later. You're meal prepping a little bit. You are shopping for these foods. You're just getting out of eating out so much. You're getting a little result. You're making this real big connection with not just the 10-pound weight loss, but I am not bloated. I'm going to the bathroom regularly. I'm sleeping significantly better because my hormones are a little more stabilized.
Yes, Jackie.
We just talked to me about that today. Sleep.
Yeah.
People tie that together, or they know it, but it sounds like just something that grandma said, eat your vegetables or, get rid of sugar. But when you actually do it for 28 days, I think people make that connection. But we really want people to come out of it with the habits, the behaviors, so that in some form or fashion, it impacts our life going forward. And at minimum, kind of, even if it's not you're perfect, but it pulls you to center a little bit, gives you a little of that understanding.
Wow, that's so much information. I have a set of questions for you, but as we're talking, more questions come up. And I'm a numbers guy, and I want our viewers to hear what you said, that we used to have 4 pounds of sugar a year. Is that what you used to say?
Yeah, roughly.
And now we have 150 pounds of sugar a year. Yep. I mean, to our guests, that's like 40 times more sugar. And can you tell me, is that just because we have an industrial food revolution? Is it profit-based for these companies? Or is it that we're just lazy? We can't go foraging, for the food, why? How did that all happen?
Well, it is industry. It is business. and you can make a lot more money on, I think all of this stuff initially starts with good intentions. When you go from a time where people may not have enough food and you can supply people with food, it's a revolution. It's evolving in that way, which can be a good thing. But then, like anything, I feel like it attracts money and business, and I'm obviously have my own businesses, and so I'm for all that. But sometimes it doesn't attract the best things, the best behaviors. So you turn a country that normally would grow all these beautiful plants and vegetables to eat and animals grazing on them, and you turn it all into 2 or 3 crops that are filling up a lot of our country because they've scientifically know how to turn those things into a lot of different foods, including what we feed animals, what we feed ourselves. So, I think as that happens, and then we get more quick foods, we get more, the fast food chain thing blows up. And a lot of times people think fast food's the only way you can eat bad. Eating out, like you referenced in the very beginning of us talking here, anywhere you go, they're cooking with soybean oil, canola oil. They're using these things to add flavors. They're frying them. So they're cooking at temperatures that aren't natural. The calories are out of control because they want it to taste good and be filling. So you come back. So as all of that kind of grew, we did become a society, obviously, that is quick convenience. We're all busy as hell. We're all stressed out of our mind. And who has time? The biggest thing we hear about our challenge is people having time to prepare their meals, meal prepping, cooking. We're obviously trying to introduce people to those habits in doable ways and show people how it can be done. But my wife's a school teacher. She's not, and I only bring up my wife because she's the chef in the family, not me. But she does all the cooking and does all of the meal prep, and she does it as a school teacher and a mom of 2. So it is doable. It's just you do have to somewhat make it a little bit of a priority in your life. And if you set it up properly in your life, it actually becomes very peaceful because you don't have to plan what to eat. You know what you're eating. It's already maybe made for the week. So if you spend a few hours a week, it could literally kind of transform your entire week and your life just from doing a few basic things that kind of are a big lever in your life to improve your health.
Wow. Well, Mark, as we wrap up, I do want to ask you a couple of questions because you mentioned, which was some of my set questions that I had. You mentioned just a few minutes ago, you have businesses. So, I'm part of your one business, and I did participate with my wife in your GFit challenge. So that was a great experience for us. But I want to, as it relates to, say, people my age, I know you have a major, wide range of participants in your CrossFit Prime. And different age groups. I see 20-year-olds in there, 30-year-olds in there, 50-year-olds in there, and obviously I have seen late 50s and 60s as well. So as it relates to me, I'm in my in my mid to late 40s. Okay, and this is I've been with you for quite a bit of time, maybe over 7 or 8 years, and I'm trying to understand for older pre-middle age people, how is it important to say have a balanced, I'm going to use the word diet, not in the sense of losing weight diet.
Right.
Balanced diet and a healthy exercise. Because, I talk to a lot of people and I'd say, hey, as we age, again, it's really connected to what we do in our health and life and retirement business. And I just try to tell them that when I meet them young, I was like, hey, as we age, we lose muscle mass, we lose bone density. And, and we can't eat the sugars and the Big Macs like we used to because we're not metabolizing. And they think I'm crazy. I mean, I have no experience at all with what I'm saying. It's just that we talk to a lot of people. We talk to 15, 20 people a day. We see their experiences. We obviously work for insurance companies. We understand that they are all have these actuaries that are telling us when we're going to die, when we're going to live. So I try to connect the dots. How, for people my age and Jackie's age, and I think you're close to our age, Mark.
42.
Yeah. So how important is to do exercise and to have a balanced diet so that we can prevent diseases or prevent breaks of our bones and muscle problems. How does that all connect to all your 3 businesses?
Yeah, so I do try to. I used to be an accountant.
Wow.
I was an accountant for 10 years.
Come over to our world.
But it wasn't my thing. I didn't love it. It was what I studied in college and everything. And so being authentic is a thing that's important to me. So any business that we had, I wanted it to be authentic, something that like I really believed in. I didn't want to just sell something. I'd rather make less money and do something that I really believe in. And one of the approaches we try to take is everyone's coming from different situations. Everyone has different interests, but there's a couple underlying truths that are important. So you're right. As you age, you start to lose muscle, which is a big part of why I believe so much in exercise and working out. Now that can look different for people. I would say include some resistance exercise. It could just literally be push-ups. It could be doing sprints. That's a heavy demand if you don't like going to the gym. It could be going for a walk if you're older. But using, as I've recently learned, walking is very demanding on the body. I just had an ACL repair. So my leg came back to life literally just from walking. So anything is really important. So like there is the little bit of the use it or lose it thing. And I know that's cliche to say, but it's very true. People a lot of times are told to stop doing stuff as they get older. And personally, I believe that just puts you in a position where you're getting weaker and you become more dependent on whether it's pills or it's other things to kind of keep you alive. So I believe you need to keep demanding these things of yourself. And it doesn't have to be CrossFit or bodybuilding. It could be just walking a lot every day. I mean, the impact of going for a walk after you eat a meal is dramatic on what it does to your blood sugar. So there's little things you can do that you don't have to be a nerd. You don't have to do it the way it looks for another person. You can, if you want to be vegetarian, you can be vegetarian. If you want to eat nothing but meat, you can eat nothing but meat. And once again, those two worlds are totally different. And I'm not here to debate, the politics of it. I'm just telling you, whatever approach you take, you need to take a healthy version of it. You can't do a processed version of it. Eat real foods. And yeah, include exercise and activity in whatever way you enjoy. A lot of times I think people look to gurus, influencers, even, to be honest with you, even our government, like with the food pyramid and things like that. And they think that's the only way, or they think that's the way they have to do it. And it's not. You can do it in your way. The most powerful way to do it is whatever gets you to do it. Like I said, simplest. And then there is, like you mentioned, getting into those years where you're in menopause or perimenopausal. Yeah. And look, there are truths to things. Like I'm 42. I'm not naturally going to be as lean as I was when I was 22, especially as I get to 52 or 62. Or for people that are just starting right now at 50, like I have a friend who has done amazing things, lost 80 pounds, and he wants to get shredded and he wants to get jacked, and he's doing an amazing job and he's a better athlete than I am, but he's going to have to deal with some skin things, you know what I mean? Because he lost so much weight. Those are all things, like we're all coming from different places, and whatever your goal is, you just got to be realistic about it, not judge yourself. Doing the activity, eating the healthy foods is the most important thing you can do. I think too often people look for an event-based thing, and that's why we sell a challenge, because we know people look for that. A 28-day challenge. People think they can do 28 days. But the reality is, if you're not looking to adopt things that become a lifestyle for you, they don't become sustainable, I wouldn't even consider it, because it's not something that most likely it's going to do you more harm than good. So adopt whatever works for you. Just get out and walk if you need to, but use the muscles, remove the inflammatory foods, remove the processed stuff. Within that, control how much you eat. It is kind of like, it's more just people don't have the awareness or the consistency to get the results they want. And they're just not willing to live the life, so to speak. They want a short-term event. So they're kind of
like those things you see, the South Beach diet. It's not a permanent solution. You really have to live the life to reap the benefits. And it's challenging. I think every day is kind of how I started. Right, I'm having a challenge trying to figure out what to eat, even though I think I'm not eating bad, but unknowingly, I still am. Definitely.
I've worked with and I only say that because I've worked with people long enough that there's things that you hear. I'm a night eater. I eat really good all day. This is how I eat, but I'm putting on weight. And there's normally a thing. Like if I dig deep enough, there's always a thing. Either they're eating some junk at night, they're not aware of what they're picking at throughout the day. Maybe they drink a case of beer on the weekend. Whatever it is, there's always a thing that's the problem for most people, or at least something that got them here. So the thing that I really want to get across is if you love a certain snack, you don't have to totally avoid that snack for the rest of your life or just for this period of time. Like include it. But what I would say is spend a little bit of time figuring out how many carbs and how many calories in that snack. Let me understand what a portion size is of that snack, and let me eat just that. And then let me surround that day with a bunch of other, like pasta is one of the probably worst things you can eat. It doesn't mean you can't include it in your life if you want to eat a serving of pasta, which is like a handful, and you want to have it a few times a week, and the rest of your day is pretty healthy. So we all have those things, and we all have those things that make us believe that it's sustainable. You have to make it believable. You know what I mean? I haven't quit biting my nails yet because I haven't believed that I could fully quit doing it. I always share that because it's a terrible, disgusting habit. And I need to believe that I'm going to do it for the rest of my life. Like I always kind of share things like that with people because believing is such a big part to accomplishing something. So set your diet up in a way that you believe it, that you believe you can do it, but then be consistent in it and then be accurate with it. You know what I mean? It's just that. You don't have to swing from one extreme state to the other.
That's awesome, Mark.
Just getting things in check and being aware of what you're doing. So one of the examples I always give people is like, we recommend a standard commercial type yogurt in our challenge because it's available and accessible to everyone, right? We have people doing this challenge all over the place. But as people progress along that journey, things that they can do or things that what's Dave's doing that's so powerful is providing the real world version of that food. We've lost a lot of this wisdom and these traditions in what we do now. Soup used to be a really wise tradition for when we were sick, and now it's become commercialized, loaded with MSG and cheap processed carbs. Dairy used to have a lot of wisdom, and then we've kind of commercialized it due to farming practices and a lot of other things. And Dave's store is, and we need more stores like Dave's store so that people can get products that are truly more the traditional form before they became heavily commercialized. So I always use the dairy example because dairy is one of those products where they don't ferment it long enough. They're not getting it without all this other stuff a part of it. And even, I'm not about to promote or tell people they should or should not do raw milks, but when you look into it, you'll realize that a lot of the processing of the dairy is the problem, not necessarily the dairy itself. So as people go down their nutritional journey and they go deeper down that rabbit hole, they can get into using and taking advantage of and supporting stores like Dave.
Dave will be on our show in a couple of weeks. Hopefully you'll watch it and subscribe. So
try to give the handoff there for Dave so that there's a context.
Yes,
that's good. Thank you so much. So Mark, we're going to be wrapping up. I want you, to tell our viewers, our guests, how they can, if you want to talk about your gym, if you want to talk about your nutrition, if you want to talk about your app, tell our guests, how they can find you, where they can find you, what do you want to talk about with them, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So if you are in the area, if you're locally in the Huntington Valley, and even we have Cherry Hill and Media, Pennsylvania, we have GFit Women, gym, very like high functional fitness. We opened it just because we saw that a lot of women kind of wanted to not be in a room jumping around, a lot of dudes. And I started that with a partner and a very close friend. And it kind of carries the same values as far as creating a true, authentic community, being that third place for people. We try to treat people like friends that go into that building, that become members at our gyms. High functional fitness, so it's CrossFit-like, but a little different in how we model it and what the focus is on each day. And then obviously I have my CrossFit gym in Northeast Philadelphia in the Lower Moreland area. And then our real passion as we've grown this business is GFit Nutrition. And that's really because we're trying to reach as many people as possible to, I think if people do it, I think it will impact their life going forward dramatically, because even it just introduces them to a few concepts, even it just introduces them to a few habits, a few meals. These are things that can be leveraged for the rest of their life. And if, like I say, it's so close to people, if they just knew, I don't think people believe how much that latte is doing to them and the compound effect of it and what it's doing to their kids, and the processed food and the chips and the Cheez-Its and all those things are all made of the same few ingredients. And I know we touched all over that already, but I want that challenge to introduce people to the power of that and how powerful it is. And when they see medication commercials, look, people need to go on medications. My family is heavily on them. It's a big motivator for me in doing this. But a lot of these things are fixed with food. So it's just a matter of finding a way that connects with you that you can consistently execute, and your life can be transformed. You don't need to be dependent on this stuff. And it'll affect you from an anxiety standpoint, a sleep standpoint. You said, hey, I got to work on getting better sleep.
that's right.
Sometimes my problem with how coaches work with people is they say these things to do, and we all know we need to do them, but I need to know how to do it. One of the ways in how to do it is lowering your sugar. You know what I mean? Because your hormones aren't all out of whack at 10 p.m. at night. So there's reasons for doing these things, and they connect at a deep level with how people feel. And I just want people to experience that and feel that.
Well,
Thank you, Mark.
thank you, Mark. Thank you for joining us on our show today. Really appreciate it. I'll see you at the gym. Okay.
Yep.
Specifically the CrossFit gym
I'll be there tomorrow night.
in Philadelphia. It sounds good.
But I will say to our viewers that if you want to find out more about Mark, his detailed information will be in the description box, and you can click on and connect to Mark and just find out more about GFit Nutrition. I'm definitely, Mark, going to reach out to you personally so I can correct some of my bad habits. And
Please do. And they can also follow us at GFit_nutrition on Instagram. That's where I do a lot of posts, a lot of tips, things like that.
Can you say that again, Mark?
GFit_nutrition on Instagram. That's our handle.
Awesome. All right, Mark. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you joining on.
I appreciate you having me, guys. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Wow.
So yes, wow. That is a big wow, and we definitely appreciate Mark being on the show with us. This is kind of amazing, and I mean, I don't know about you, Jackie. I'm enjoying our show.
I am. I'm learning a lot, some personal journeys and things that I could actually do better. So hopefully I can lose some of this weight or just get a better understanding of what I'm putting into my body. So just want to be better at my overall wellness. And then hopefully this translates to some of the knowledge that we can give as advisors to some of our clients as we meet folks to better understand their situation. Because I want to get folks the products and services that they deserve and not have their weight or the type of medications that they're taking inhibit them from getting the things that they deserve. So
that's great.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what's going to happen for us next week. Next week, we're going to kind of go back to our plan segment,
yes.
Where Jackie and I are going to talk a little bit more about what the understanding of what short-term care is and long-term care versus health insurance. I think there's a big, in my experience, I've been doing this for over 15 years, that I think people think that short-term care and long-term care is health insurance. So we're going to help people understand that on our next show. And when Jackie and I are the guests of our show, yes. We're going to play some fun games. Yeah. We're going to donate some money to a good cause. So definitely tune into our show next week. And we, don't forget that, you can find us on the YouTube channel, Plan Well to Live Well. If you want a personal consultation with Jackie, myself, and our team, please go to our channel. We have a calendar link there where you can request a free consultation. Also, you can use that channel link and you can ask us to talk about specific topics that you think are important for you and your family on the Plan Well and Live Well segments. We'll be more than happy to take your recommendations and have a topic about that, or just shoot some questions for us. Also, if there are anybody that wants to be a guest, if you feel that you have a topic, a company comments that you want our viewers and the community to talk about and to hear about, please, same thing, go to our YouTube channel, Plan Well to Live Well, and go to our calendar link and ask to be a guest or a sponsor or an advertiser. We welcome all that to the show.
And subscribe, and share this message with your friends and family out there in the internet community. We would appreciate your support.
Thank you very much.
As always, we want everyone to plan well and live well.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.